Welcome to Sew with Mrs. Herbert. In episodes 3 through 7, we made pants that had a casing and a 1-inch hem. I encourage you to make a second pair or get a smaller or larger pattern and make one as a gift for someone else so that you can practice the skills you just learned. Now in episode 9, we're going to make an apron. And as I explained in episode 8, the reason I chose this specific apron is because it has a facing which we then turn into a casing, and then it has a patch pocket, so you're learning some new skills. So today in our apron, we'll review our pattern guide sheet, we'll be pinning our pattern onto the fabric, and we'll be cutting out our pattern and our fabric. To get started, just as we did with our first project, I enlarged each of these quadrants so that you could see them a little better. So we're going to look first at this quadrant that has the views and the pattern pieces. All right, here it is. Here they're thanking us. We've got our pattern brand and number, the views. We're making view C. Now I will tell you that in enlarging the paper for the pattern, first of all, the paper is darker, so it's not bright white. And then some of the printing comes through for the back, and that's what you're seeing in these enlargements. So if you can do your best to ignore the wording that peeks through or the shading that peeks through. But anyway, so we're making project C. Now I noticed right away, this was kind of helpful. It says use pattern pieces 1 through 5 for view A, pieces 2 through 4 and 6 for B, pieces 7 through 12 for C, and then pattern pieces 13 through 15 for D. So I can look up here. Here are all of the pieces that are numbered, and here they're numbered and labeled. So let's start to get an idea of what the pieces look like. It says 7 through 12. So let's look. Upper pocket, view C. That is this little piece right here. We have piece 8, the apron, right here. Piece 9, pocket. Let's find that right here. Piece 10, lower pocket. 11, facing. Here's 11. Notice the shape matches the shape here. And 12, the tie. So that's right here. So those are the pieces I'll be looking for, 7 through 12. All right, let's look at the next quadrant on our pattern guide sheet. So here they're reminding us of what we just did. Select the pattern pieces for the view that we're making. And then they give you a suggestion that you might want to trace those pieces before you cut them out, because there are multiple sizes on each one. And maybe you want to make a small or a medium sometime later for another person. So you could trace it if you wanted. When we cut out the pieces, if they're super, super wrinkly and you can't just smooth them flat, it's saying use a dry iron. And that's an appropriate tip for any pattern that you use. When they say a dry iron, meaning that there's no steam on, it's turned off, or there's no steam in the iron. And then follow the pattern layout, and then make sure that you're following what the key says about right side and wrong side. Let's look right here. The wrong side of the fabric is the color of the paper. The right side of the fabric has some little dots in it. Pattern piece with printed side up. So that's also the color of the fabric. The paper. Pattern piece with printed side down. And there's some dots and dashes. And then the star just saying, be on the lookout for special instructions. Now up here, I thought this was interesting. Cut out the pieces with a scissors or a rotary cutter. If using a rotary cutter, you may find a smaller blade is easier to use, especially when cutting around curves. Now, sometimes I'm a quilter, so I have a rotary cutter and a cutting mat, and I'll use a rotary cutter on the straight edges, but then I'll switch to my scissors on the curved edges. This is showing you the fold, the salvage, and how to place on grain or how to place on fold. So let's now go to the cutting layout. This is the lower left quadrant on the pattern guide sheet. And it tells us first with fabric 45 inches wide. Here's apron A, B, and here's C. I've already circled it in red. So here for sizes small, medium, and large, extra large for kids, and that's what we're making. If we were making adult size, we would choose this one. So again, back here, so we've got piece 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is these, and these are 12. Okay, when I look at this cutting layout, we just talked about what the dots or the background looks like. This fabric is right side up. Now looking at the pattern pieces, these that are solid with the paper color background, those are also right side up of the pattern, so we can read them clearly. On this tie, one tie is right side up, but the second tie is right side down, so they flipped it. Same thing with these two facing pieces. One is right side up, the other is turned over with right side down. In this case, with the facing pieces, they needed to do that so that you would have one match each side of your apron where your arm is. Okay, over here, they took a portion of this fabric off and folded it to put piece 10 on it, which is the pocket that goes across the apron. All right, because this has so many parts to it, I'm going to show you how I attack this. I start with the largest piece. So, as I said, it says selvage and selvage. I really don't want to have to cut my piece 8 out a single layer all the way around. So I'm going to fold just in half, just enough, it's not really in half, but fold it just enough to fit piece 8 on a fold right here. I'm going to put it down in the lower right corner as much as I can. All right, I'm going to get all of my pieces out. When I come back, I'll have piece 8 with my fabric folded the way I've just described. As I explained before, I folded the fabric up just wide enough to fit piece 8. In other words, on piece 8, right down the center, there's a line that says place on fold. I'm going to have half the pattern hanging off the fold, half the pattern here. So when I'm cutting it, it's double, and you open it up and it's this full size. Okay, that's a lot of explanation, but it'll make sense as we go along. Also, this fabric, I'll just tell you, this is called Symphony Broadcloth. It's a cotton polyester blend, and I like it for this type of things. Most broadcloths are 100% cotton. They wrinkle, and it's hard to get the wrinkles out even when you press them. So this is the Symphony cotton is what I look for when I'm making any kind of lightweight top or lightweight clothing. Okay, I put a pin here because I need to remember this is the wrong side, but I've only folded it up part way. Here is piece 8. And this right here says center front. So I can place the center front exactly on that fold line. And I'm looking to make sure I'm not off the edge here. Also, make sure that I'm making size extra large, okay? I don't want to waste any fabric. And actually, when I look at this, I've got a little more than I need. So I'm going to refold this so that there's not as much left over. The reason I'm being so picky is because there needs to be enough over in that section to have both these separate pieces of the facing. So I'm going to take another few seconds and refold this. Now let me check. That's better. I don't want to use the selvage, but I can get right up to within 5/8 of the edge. So let's fold this straight all the way down. There's a lot of checking and double checking. So I'm putting that center front of the pattern right along the fold. So I'm going to pin the fold first. And I'll put my pins every 5 or 6 inches apart, about that much, which is about 6 inches. Okay, then I'll smooth it out from there. I'm going to go ahead and continue pinning and then come back. I want you to know you have a choice. You can follow this exactly as it is. You'd put piece 8 all the way on the pattern, but I chose to fold it just enough. There's the selvage edge, just enough so that I'm on 2 layers of fabric and my center front of my apron is on the fold. That way when I cut it out, I'm cutting both halves at the same time. But if this seems complicated, go ahead and lay your fabric flat, right side up, and follow this. All right, so because I'm doing it like this, I need to go ahead and cut out this piece before I work out pinning on the other pieces. So let me do that, and I'll be back. As a reminder, when we cut, the lower blade is touching my cardboard that protects my table. And when I get to my notch, I use the tip of my scissors. I cut close to the notch. I cut out to make a little diamond and then continue. As I evaluated piece 12 and 10, I saw this extra. I don't want this to be wasted, and I'd like the part over here where the facings are to be as large as possible so that maybe I can cut them out at the same time. With all that thinking, I took the edge of this fabric and folded it over. So this is folded over with wrong sides together. So I've got right side up, right side on the back, which means here's a 12 right side up. The 12 wrong side up would be the one underneath. So when I cut this, I will have cut out 2 strips of number 12 just the way the picture shows. I'll cut that out, and then I'll show you how I place number 10 on. Piece 12 is cut out, and I have 2 of them, and they're wrong sides together. I was able to fold up then. We had remaining here. You see where we cut out piece 8. So we folded this wide enough that we could fit piece 10. Here it says center front on fold. So we have it on the fold. So that pocket is going to be twice as wide as this. Once I cut this out, I'll work on placing pieces 11, 9, and 7. Now, one thing to remember is that this is the wrong side up. Because when we folded it, so we've got right side up here. This is the wrong side. So I put a pin right here so that I would know what the wrong side was. So I need to keep that in mind when I'm pinning the other pieces. But I can go ahead and cut out piece 10 now, and then I'll be back. Now that piece 10 is cut out, I'm able to take the remaining piece of fabric, fold it in half with wrong sides together. I put piece 11, following the grain line parallel to the selvage and parallel to the fold. So I'm able to cut both of those pieces out at the same time. Once I cut that, I'll flatten it again because I only need one of number 7 and one of 9. We now have cut out all the pieces. Now I've shown you a lot of steps. If it seems too confusing, go ahead and lay your fabric open with right side up and follow the diagram. In our next episode, we're going to transfer the markings onto the fabric. Some will go on the right side, some on the wrong side. We'll have to read each piece carefully.